Good evening. I'm Leah Gurton for H Block News. Today, on its 5-year anniversary, we remember the over 1,800 people who lost their lives in Hurricane Katrina. New Orleans, Louisiana suffered greatly, with approximately 80% of the city flooding due to 53 levee breaches around the Mississippi River. Despite the evacuation to the Louisiana Superdome of most of the population, homes and lives were destroyed. 5 years later, New Orleans is still rebuilding itself. We are joined now by reporter Meg Yaman, who was there to witness the destruction, and victim Lila Selly, a resident of New Orleans during the hurricane. So Lila, what was it like to experience Hurricane Katrina?
My strongest memory was experiencing Katrina from the inside of the Louisiana Superdome. The Superdome is a sports stadium, but it was also used as a shelter to those of us who could not evacuate in time. There must have been at least 30,000 people who had to be sheltered within the Superdome. At one point, I remember a large section of the outer covering being ripped off by the rain and wind. It was a terrifying experience for all of us.
Good evening, Meg. So you were interviewing victims just days after the hurricane. Could you tell us what that was like?
It was awful. I've never seen so much water, and it was devastating to see the destruction.
Do you think you could tell us about how hurricanes are formed?
Yes. As you can see here, hurricanes originate out of the ocean, usually near a tropical region. As they move across the ocean, the hurricanes build energy by absorbing warm air from the surface. The warm air rises within the hurricane, creating an area of lower pressure below. Some hurricanes never reach the coast, but those that do can cause considerable damage. In the case of Hurricane Katrina, it began in the Atlantic Ocean. As it moved over warmer waters of the Gulf of Mexico, the hurricane became more organized and much larger. It hit the coast of Louisiana as a Category 3 hurricane, which means that it had wind speeds of 111 to 113 miles per hour when it hit. Of the 2005 hurricane season, it was the costliest hurricane in the history of the United States, as one of the 5 most deadly also.
Thank you for watching, and join us after the break to see footage of interviews just days after Katrina hit.
This may all be happening right now.
Welcome back to H Block News. I'm Leah Gurton. Here we have some interviews from 5 years ago, just days after Hurricane Katrina hit.
I'm standing here in New Orleans, Louisiana with Lila Selly, whose life, along with her home, has been destroyed by Hurricane Katrina. Can you tell us about your experience with the hurricane?
My house was very close to the coastline, so it was one of the very first buildings to be destroyed by the hurricane. I was fortunate enough to get out in time, but others were not so lucky. I just hope that I can move out of the trailer that I live in now at some point. The government said aid at first, but not nearly enough to cover the cost of the damages.
Here with Andrea O'Brien, whose life has also been devastated by the hurricane.
This is the worst hurricane I've ever seen. In all my time living here, there's never been such a disaster. It's just seeing around everyone. There's people on the street. There's almost 10 feet of flooding over the whole city. It's just so devastating. I lost my house. It's completely destroyed. And I don't know where the rest of my family is. I'm just on my own. This is just horrible.
The hurricane took people by surprise. 53 levees were breached, causing 10 feet of flooding throughout the city.
The aftermath was devastating. Bodies could be seen floating through what used to be the streets of New Orleans.
Many countries, along with the U.S., have supplied water and other goods to the victims of Hurricane Katrina.
Animals are also abandoned with no food or home, while they are left alone to survive as the people are being rescued.
Lauren is a 9-year-old girl who lived in poverty before and after the hurricane. This ceramic angel is all she has left of her family. Lauren's family was facing major conflict before the storm hit, Katrina made it all the worse. She has now lost her home and her family.
With us now, we have Lauren, who is now 14 years of age, whose parents have died in the hurricane. Average kids at your age don't have to think about colleges or their future right now. I know that's different for you. What are you doing about that?
Well, now I live in a community shelter, and there's a lot of kids there who've been affected by the hurricane as well.
What do you do in your free time?
Well, I just sort of hang out with the other kids, we sort of talk about what happened a little bit, but then, we try to forget about it, sort of look forward. It's pretty full in there, so they're trying not to accept too much people. I haven't really thought about college until I can actually have enough money for that.
Fellow victims Lila Selly and Andrea O'Brien have helped each other through the disaster, but they need your help as well. Anything you can do to help the victims is much appreciated. Thank you.
Hurricane Katrina was one of the deadliest hurricanes in the history of the United States. It killed over 1,800 people.
The confirmed death toll stood at 1,836, mainly from Louisiana and Mississippi. However, 705 people remain categorized as missing in Louisiana, so this number is not final. Many of the deaths are indirect. It is almost impossible to determine the exact cause of some of the fatalities.
Thank you for joining us. After having seen the effects of Hurricane Katrina, please visit www.hurricanekatrina.com to see what you can do to help. New Orleans is still struggling to rebuild itself, and help is always appreciated. Thank you for watching H Block News, and have a great night.
On August 28, 2005, there was a hurricane. It came crashing into New Orleans, New Orleans, New Orleans. On August 28, 2005, there was a hurricane. It came crashing into New Orleans, New Orleans, New Orleans. It took 1,800 lives, 53 levees were breached, flooding 80% of the city, destroyed hundreds of buildings and thousands of homes and thousands of families. People around the world trying to help this cause, donating water and canned goods. This act of Mother Nature was so devastating, leaving New Orleans in ruins. Hundreds homeless, nowhere to go, with nothing left but their memories. How could a hurricane be so reckless, turning everything to the blackness? No one expected the impact to be so big, ruining lives all around the world, incredibly deadly to those 1,800 deaths. On August 28, 2005, there was a hurricane. It came crashing into New Orleans, New Orleans, New Orleans. On August 28, 2005, there was a hurricane. It came crashing